Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus coming at you with another video. Today we are talking about the concept of data streams and concurrent dimensional existences. Sounds like pretty complicated Rick and Morty kind of stuff, and in some ways it kind of is. And we're going to basically look into the idea that we may be living numerous concurrent existences in different types of realms. And a lot to digest here, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get started, this is Afterlife Topics Metaphysics, where we talk about this kind of stuff, tackle these types of issues. If you like this work, I encourage you, please hit that subscribe button. It does a lot to support this. Also sharing the video, liking the video, leaving a comment, all that stuff helps keep the algorithm in check. And if you want to continue to support this work, I always appreciate any donations, people who sign up as patrons. All you guys who are patrons, a big shout out, a special thank you to you guys, allowing me to keep up with the communities, the YouTube channel, the books, and everything else. Okay, so to continue. So the concept of data streams is a Tom Campbell analogy, actually. And, I do agree with, or I do, like a lot of things that come out of Tom Campbell. I also disagree with a lot of things that Tom Campbell says, which I've tackled on this channel. But that's still the minority of it. Tom Campbell does bring a lot of, I think, really important ideas to the table that match my own experiences. And one of them is the concept that basically, when you're astral projecting, what you're doing is that there's all these different streams of data. And so we can think of it a little bit like frequencies on a radio. The idea that there's all these invisible frequencies going through the air all the time that we have no access to. But if you have, for example, a TV and an antenna, if you use an old-fashioned TV, or the same concept exists, I guess, in a different form and more advanced TVs, then it tunes to the frequency and then the image comes up. That seems to be how reality also operates, which to me is pretty believable. So you have different frequencies of reality on different levels. And astral projection is the tuning of your consciousness to a different frequency and a different reality. Now, we commonly call the other side the astral plane. It's a kind of a Hindu terminology, actually, and it just kind of stuck. I don't know if it's a fully accurate definition, because there's a lot of complications we don't fully understand about the places that we go to. But one thing we can verify is that people who lived here, who pass away, live on that side, and that spirits who communicate from that side refer to their world as being an afterlife. So they pass away here, maybe they go through the tunnel and they're taken by loved ones and they arrive in a new world, which can be accessed by us if you practice astral projection techniques. And by the way, if you saw the previous video, was the astral projection challenge. If you haven't seen that yet, maybe take a look and see if you can initiate your own experience in this regard, and then post in the comments in that video or this one if you had any results doing that. But to continue, so when you astral project, you attune yourself to that frequency. And so we commonly call that an afterlife, we call that an astral world. We know that there's many others of varying types and styles, but it does seem like the common place people go to does look and feel like this world, even if there's a lot of differences, whether it's heavenly environments with temples and animals and nature, or it's more urban environments. It seems like these are all different realms that kind of have a similar theme, which is to say human civilization, different, but not that different from this reality. So it's like neighboring realities that, again, they have similarities and differences, and they're higher dimensional, which means that unlike here, you have the ability to hop between these different frequencies and skip around to different worlds. Whereas in this awareness, when you're here, you're really bounded by the physical body. So you can only go to other worlds if you can separate your consciousness outside of the physical brain, which, is something that we can all do. But it's not as tangible as it can be done when you leave this body, and then you can really just teleport around to different worlds, different densities, vibrations, whatever you want to call it. So the data stream kind of analogy, what that means is there's all these different data that I guess a higher self version of you is able to access. So your higher self is almost like, the processing system of your computer, and you're just an application on the computer, right? So, but you actually have a whole computer system going on in the background, and that's kind of what the concept of the higher self is. And that whole system is actually managing all these different concurrent existences that you have going at the same time. How many? It's hard to say, but it seems like a soul, in order to have the maximum experience and be able to do all types of cool things in the multiverse, will branch off and be in all types of places. We call these worlds astral planes, but even that doesn't quite do it justice. We can also just think of it as parallel realities that are separate but connected. Does this mean that there are multiple astral planes? I think there are, but at the same time, I think that there's a primary one that's connected specifically to this plane of existence. So we have the primary world, the primary frequency that seems to be our neighboring frequency that most people access and is consistent in the sense that multiple people can astral project and go to that same place. Multiple people can die and then go to that same world. But then from that world, there could be other branching parallel realities. There could be, of course, other neighboring realities which are not connected. They're not the same, geographic radius, not the same spatial dimension as that astral frequency, which, by the way, occupies the same universe that we're currently in a sense. So, if you astral project in this bedroom, you'd see the astral version still in this bedroom, still here in the city I'm in, still on planet Earth, but the higher dimensional frequency of it. So that's why it's our neighboring frequency. What about, going to different planets, different worlds, different universes? There's no reason that we can't do that or that we're not already connected to these parallel realities. So here's where it gets interesting. How do we know that there's maybe many versions of us split apart into many different fragments, but all existing in different parallel realities, being managed by the main processing unit, which is our higher self? The evidence comes in dreams. Okay, so dreaming. Dreams are not, in my opinion, objective experiences. It's images and it's data that's coming into your brain. But where is the data coming from? That's the evidence that we're looking at many parallel realities. Because for some of us who are big-time dreamers, like myself, you may be dreaming and find yourself engaged in 6 different simultaneous storylines or environments, and your brain is trying to process all that and make sense of it, and they all kind of clash together, and you end up with a whole bunch of nonsense because it's data coming from all these different sources at the same time, coming into your brain and clashing with it. So, for example, the other night I dreamed, trying to see if I can think back. I dreamed I was in some kind of apartment with some woman, and I guess she was my girlfriend. But now during that moment I knew who she was. Retrospect, I have no idea who that was. Then I also, at the same time, I was dreaming I was back in the home where I grew up in, which seems to be like the astral world I go to when I astral project and appear there. So I was doing something there at the same time. Then it was nighttime, and it was like I was out in the woods or something like that with some people. And so that was like a different experience as well. I've also had experiences as different types of people, sometimes as like a blonde-haired woman. That's one example. Just specifically the other night, I'm thinking those are 3 different experiences. There was a 4th one as well. I can't quite remember. But these were like 4 different realities all meshing together at the same time, blending in with each other, and trying to make sense or unscramble that is very difficult, because it's like having 4 different TV stations on at the same time, and your mind is flipping between all of them, and then crossing circuits all the time, and again you get this jumbled mess when you wake up. And also it tends to be kind of you have like hallucinations messing with it too, so you get like symbolism, and then your mind goes on tangents, and then again it's all cluttered. So these are different data streams of probably different parallel realities all happening at the same time. Astral projection, if properly done, means that you're focused on one of these data streams, and then your consciousness shifts just to that one, then you become aware of that existence as it's happening. It just so happens that almost every time I astral project, whatever these other data streams, these other lives are, they don't really come up for me when I project. It's only the one that seems connected to this incarnation, this body as Cyrus, appearing in the old astral duplicate home. So, with the parents who are deceased, my brother who is deceased, oftentimes they're around and they're still them. They recognize that they're deceased. They can talk about when they died here. They're aware of my life here. That you can have frank conversations with them. So, it's the real place. It really is them. Their bodies here died, and now, their consciousness is just planted there in that reality together. I think for whatever reason, astral projection for me is focused on that plane. And I think it is like this for most people who astral project. I don't actually think that there's like millions of different planes of existence, because it seems like we share this world, or humanity shares it with that one particular data stream. So we all end up like going there, like naturally. If we project, we end up there. If we have a near-death experience, we end up somewhere there on some gradient of the different levels, whether it's heavenly dimensions or normal kind of urban environments. Wherever it is, though, it's still the same unified place that comes from this world to that world. Because it wouldn't really make sense if you died here and then you go to a plane of existence that had nothing to do with your life here. Okay, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's like, well, I died and then I became a 25-year-old female marketing executive in some city in a world that doesn't exist here, on planet Torgak. It wouldn't really make any sense, would it? Because these are different incarnations, different lives and different realities. Some of these could even be physical realities like this one. It could be life on other planets, on Earth similar to this one, different timelines. Really, the higher processing unit of your higher self has full creative control of any kind of incarnation or place it wants to plant itself and have an autonomous existence in. So it's up to you on a higher level to decide, I'm going to have a life here, I'm going to have a life here and here and here and here. And then sometimes, like during the dream state, we're able to get a glimpse of all the data from all those different lives just converging back into us, and we can become a little bit aware of all that mess happening, even if it's very incoherent. So again, I've never been able to really project into a parallel life, but I've only been able to interpret them in dreams. When I begin the out-of-body process, I feel myself leaving my body. There's an electrical feeling, there's a buzzing feeling sometimes, and I'm like lifting up, and then I switch over, and 9 times out of 10, I'm in the astral duplicate home, maybe oftentimes just laying on my bed on that side. So I have my own bedroom in that house, and that's kind of like my real house. I mean, because I'm there frequently enough, and I grew up in that bedroom, even though that house has been torn down. On this side of the veil, it doesn't exist anymore. On that side, it does exist, and so I basically, spend a lot of my time there, and that's, frequently where I reside. Where my life is on that side is that bedroom in that house, which, it looks like how it used to look, but there's also stuff in there that belongs to the me who lives on that side, which I wouldn't even know it. But if I picked up an object, it could be stuff that I bought or I acquired on that side. I have a dresser full of clothes from my life there. Which, again, I don't get full access to those memories if I'm projecting. So I'm like hijacking my life there, going into that data stream as Cyrus from this side, entering into that world, and have to kind of figure things out. Usually I don't have time to explore it that much. I'm focused on trying to interact with people or meet with deceased loved ones or do experiments or, get out of the house and look around. And then sometimes that data stream so happens that I'm doing something else on the other side. I'm in some really wacky, interesting environment. So it could be cities, I could be out traveling, or it could be something more fantastical. I've been in some very interesting places that look like alien planets, but still I was aware that it was me, it was Cyrus inhabiting that domain at that time. And so, that's evidence that, the Cyrus that lives in that astral home, sometimes as an adventurer in this life, I seek adventure on that side, and sometimes I'll pop up into some unusual place. I've been in, again, a few times, very, very alien environments, sometimes staying in surprising places in those alien environments. Like, for example, I might be in a hotel. It just so happens that hotel is on an alien world. I remember a place one time that was, it was like all shallow, was like a shallow water ocean. And then there were these huge dragon-like creatures that I interpret as being kind of like omnivores or herbivores, but they were kind of, maybe they're eating fish, I don't know, but they were just kind of like lumbering around in the water, and that was definitely one of the reasons I was there, was to observe them. And yes, all of these different realities, it's like they're just as physical as this world, but at the same time they're not, because what sets this data stream apart from the others is that this is like, if you're into computer gaming, it's like hardcore mode. This is where there's very little leeway with the mind. So normally, in a normal existence, in a normal environment, in a normal world, you have these, again, very common, typical, normal abilities to, I don't know, change things with your mind, teleport. You're not bound to having to eat 3 times a day, or a lot of these systems in place that are like extremely rigid, extremely physical. When you lessen the powers of the mind and increase the sort of your dependence on flesh, then you become, you enter into much stricter, much more difficult environments where the only way you can even participate in those environments is you have to be born into it. You have to incarnate into a flesh body. Whereas I think on astral conditions, maybe that kind of stuff still happens, but it certainly seems like there's a lot of leeway with that. So if you don't have to necessarily, if you're a soul, I'm assuming, let's say you come from some, I don't know, some orb of light world, and all the souls are floating around and whatever, and that soul wants to participate on the astral earth, which looks and feels like this one, then I think it probably just has to be able to shape a body for itself and appear on that side. It's not going to be complicated to come to this world, because it's so strict and so rigid and so physical. Have to get born into a body. And this is the difference, of course, between like 3rd density, 4th density. This 3rd density means it's like we're bound by these rules of physics, which I think in other worlds, rules of physics become more like guidelines of physics. It's a big difference. Guidelines versus impenetrable rules that you cannot escape from. So that's what makes this data stream such a difficult one. But as we know in the spiritual lore, there's a reason for coming into a data stream, a frequency that's very difficult, like this one, where you become amnesic to all of your other existences, and you're stuck here, and you have to adapt, and you have to learn hard lessons, and maybe do some version of humanitarian work, maybe trying to open people's minds to the greater existence, or fix a problematic culture or problematic world that is hindered by ignorance and confusion and all these types of things. So there's different motivations for coming here. So ultimately, I guess to summarize, data streams means that there's all this data coming in, being inputted into your mind from many different parallel realities and parallel existences. It may even be influencing your life here, because your higher processing unit, your higher self, is managing all of that behind the scenes, creating all of these different experiences that you're able to enjoy, different existences. Each stream is ultimately yourself, and so whether you're an alien on planet Torgak or you're human on planet Earth, it's still going to be the same soul essence of you that you get to enjoy and flip between these different realities, which you can probably do when as you enhance your skills at being multidimensional. You can hop between all these different realities, but there is a one primary data stream, which is ultimately just the higher frequency of this planet, which we naturally are just going to gravitate to, because it's the continuation of this particular incarnation, where you will appear at, and that's what we call the astral plane or the afterlife, but there could be many, many other types, many other existences, parallel realities in very physical worlds, parallel realities in less physical worlds, parallel realities and different types of what we, quote, astral domains, which again, we don't even really know if that definition works at this point. It all kind of blends together. Even this reality, if humanity became more skilled at using powers of the mind, and let's say the kind of vibration, if you want to call it that, increases here in this world, then this world could easily be just like in any of the other realities where, if we all gained a higher mental power, then we could be, switching between these different existences very, very easily. And I think, it's something that we can learn to do over there. But here, it's a much more difficult process. So I do like the data stream analogy. It seems to work. It makes the most sense when you're dreaming because you're getting all this input, all this weird stuff coming in from many different directions that becomes jumbled and difficult to decipher, or they bleed into each other. But if you can astral project, you can narrow it down to just one reality. Now, some people have very, very weird, like lucid dreaming trips, and that could very well be the data, people's data streams getting focused on some really offbeat, wild and crazy parallel existences, which maybe don't make a lot of sense by our own standards. Like suddenly I'm a pink elephant flying through the cosmos, riding on the back of what the pink elephants ride on. I don't know, a dragon, who knows. You get my point. I'm probably just rambling at this point. There's an airplane going over. It's a difficult one to understand, and if you're confused, it's okay. I know what that's like, but really just imagine that multidimensionality, you're in many different places, all over the place, all over the multiverse, not just this existence. And with powers of the mind, you can access, tap into, and learn about all those different existences. Thanks for watching. This is Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. You can get involved over at afterlifetopics.com. Down in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you'll see it come up. Books like The Afterlife and Beyond. You can get involved as a Patreon, work with me one-on-one. All that's in the description down below, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's about it. Try to get another video up for you guys shortly after this one, and I will see you all on the next video.